In this WrestleTalk news, WWE and Bray Wyatt have a clean slate, more release stars returning on SmackDown, and why Kevin Dunn is still going to be producing WWE. So subscribe and enable notifications to Always On for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
So I think it's fair to say that things did not exactly end well between WWE and Bray Wyatt. The Fiend character, which had genuinely captured the imagination of the audience, had been sold out to Goldberg and stuck in a never-ending feud with Randy Orton heading into last year. Then Crispy Fried Fiend had a disappointing return at Fastlane before losing to Orton at WrestleMania thanks to Alexa Bliss just leaking oil. Then in July, it was announced out of the blue that Bray had been released from the company. Budget cuts were cited as the reason, but WWE also seemingly let word leak out that Wyatt had been difficult to work with backstage. He had a bad attitude. Anyhow, now that Vince McMahon has stepped down and Triple H has taken over as creative head, that should all be water under the bridge. At least that's what WWE are seemingly hoping. Because according to a report from Fightful Select, Wyatt is one of the names that has at least been pitched for a return within creative. And while that doesn't obviously guarantee a return, sources within the company reckon that is essentially a clean slate. They said if Triple H thinks a talent can help the company or make money, most believe he's largely going to throw whatever issues they had with Vince McMahon out of the window for the sake of creating a better show. Now, Fightful said that talent they spoke to outside of WWE says this has renewed optimism for them, even if they had been booked poorly under Triple H before, as now there's no Vince McMahon over him. Because in the case of Bray Wyatt, that relationship with Vince seemed to be the biggest issue. One WWE source that Fightful spoke to said that when things were shit, Wyatt would say they were shit, and Vince saw that as difficult to deal with. The truth hurts, buddy. The truth hurts. Don't read the comments. It was said that Vince was annoyed that Wyatt was so protective over his character and creative, and this essentially led to Vince just giving up on Bray. Fightful wrote, one talent said that he could tell by last year that Vince McMahon was simply done with Bray Wyatt and just didn't like him personally. McMahon would shout derogatory things at Wyatt about his physique, which the talent believes actually stemmed from the fact that Wyatt would often criticize the lack of creative direction that his stories or characters would go to. Then, once Wyatt was released from WWE, out came all the stories about the bad attitude, which was said by sources to have just come directly from Vince, and there were several other instances of rumors started within the circle to ease the heat off of WWE for releasing him. Fightful also did some digging into the last few months of Wyatt's time in the company, and they found that the WrestleMania match finish was changed at the last minute. They wrote the finish changed the day before, they'd bragged a surprise, Randy Orton was supposed to lose and then have months off. Instead, the finish was essentially just used to end Bray's time in WWE. He didn't really appear after that loss. And one source said that there was never a long-term plan for the resolution of that story, which frustrated those involved in it as it was featured heavily. Quite right, because that seems mad, because like to book a long-term plan in wrestling, you just have to start with, and then this person wins. Before we crack on with the rest of the episode, we just need to thank Gavin, Cash Money, Kashiwabara, and Kick to the Face, Get Off My Plane for their support on Patreon. Now, the thing is, Vince actually has bigger fish to fry right now than Bray Wyatt, but he does think he's a big fish. A great big fish. Freaking weirdo. Vince has a bunch of people all up in his financials over hush money payments he paid to a woman he allegedly had an affair with. Now, WWE announced that they were restating past financial statements due to certain unrecorded expenses made by Vince McMahon totaling $14.6 million. Earlier this week, they uncovered two more payments made in 2007 and 2009, totaling $5 million, but the company's SEC filing said that the sums were unrelated to the allegations that led to the special committee investigation, i.e., not hush money. Cue Brandon Thurston of WrestleNomics in order to work out what these payments could possibly be for. He wrote, the additional $5 million WWE found in payments made by Vince McMahon in 2007 and 2009, and which should have counted as company expenses, match the amount and years of payments WWE made to the Trump Foundation. These payments, $4 million in 2007 and $1 million in 2009, also match the years that Trump made his appearances in WWE TV programs. And it gets messy here because IRS filings list WWE as the contributors to the foundation, but a WWE spokesperson in 2012 claimed the payments came directly from Vince McMahon instead, while in 2016 a WWE spokesperson denied that the donations to the foundation were actually appearance fees for Trump on WWE programming, saying that those fees had been paid separately. These were just separate personal donations. But of course, there would be a reason to take your appearance fee as a donation to your foundation, according to Thurston. As for the possible motivation of compensating Trump through his foundation for performing on WWE television, doing so may have allowed Trump to avoid paying taxes, something he's made an effort to do in other cases. Likewise, claiming a large charitable donation to the Trump Foundation might have eased the McMahon's personal tax burden in those years. Whether any of that is legal is another question. Speaking of, you're fired. WWE did a lot of that during the pandemic, essentially clearing house of a lot of Triple H's favourite talent in an effort to shake up NXT and obviously inflate their profit margin before the quarterly investors call. But now that Triple H has found himself with creative control, he's bringing back some of his absolute faves, at least all the ones that didn't sign up for AEW. It began with bringing Io Sky to the main roster from NXT and getting Dakota Kai back. Karrion Kross and Scarlett then made a return on SmackDown. Dexter Lumis came back on Raw, and now there is speculation that others are going to be returning on SmackDown tonight. Because according to PW Insider, AJ Francis, aka Top Dollar of Hit Row, is expected to be at SmackDown tonight in Raleigh, North Carolina. They wrote that they had also discovered that Dollar's Hit Row partner Ashante the Adonis is also slated to be at SmackDown, which certainly lends some credence to the idea that the team are going to be returning to WWE. Now, Hit Row were unceremoniously cut down in their prime after making a great debut for the blue brand and genuinely getting over with the audience. The group's leader, Swerve Strickland, has since signed to AEW, where he is currently the tag team champion with Keith Lee. Meanwhile, PW Insider have not said anything about B-Fab, the fourth member of the group, returning to WWE. Now, as Triple H slowly reshapes the company to his will, a lot of people have been thinking, wishing, hoping, praying that somehow during that housekeeping, Kevin Dunn gets swept right out of the door. Because Dunn is the executive vice president of television production, and the feat at which to lay the blame for WWE's overzealous production, i.e. death by 1,000 cuts, zooms, and those weird squats that camera guy did that time that Rollins was using the chair on Drew McIntyre. Now, some reports did in fact claim that Dunn was expected to leave WWE following Vince's retirement, and there is further speculation that Stephanie McMahon just outright doesn't like Dunn. But Triple H recently hinted that Dunn would indeed be staying with the company, which was picked up in a report from Fightful Select. Now, according to the report, WWE doesn't believe that there is anyone who could feasibly replace Dunn at this time, because the likeliest candidate had actually been released in the most recent round of layoffs. How convenient. And considering how that exit went down, WWE does not believe they can win them back because there are no clean slates here, guys. The report also noted that half a dozen talents had expressed frustration with Dunn's production style and even noted that it often undermines their performance, so they hoped that it would be changing under the new leadership. One former WWE star is often speculated for a return to the ring is Paige, aka Saraya. Paige officially left WWE last month after having been out of action with a neck injury for years, and in that time she had on-screen roles as general manager of SmackDown and on WWE Backstage, but had to remain out of competition due to her injury. And while the injury was potentially life-threatening if she was ever dropped on her neck again, which she just avoided doing, Paige also spiraled into drug abuse in the wake of her sex tape being leaked online. Speaking with Renee Paquette on the Sessions podcast, she said that WWE officials were immensely concerned for her during this dark time and actually helped her out. She said they really tried. They even brought me out to Connecticut at one point and just were like, "Do you need help?" I was like, "No, I'm good. I don't know what you're talking about." And then while initially turning away help, she eventually decided to return to WWE and met up with management. She noted, "I walked up to Hunter and he just gave me this hug. He said, 'I thought you were gonna die.' I walked up to Stephanie and Stephanie gave me a big hug and said, 'I thought you were going to die.' And then I get to Vince, he looked at me for a second and then he's just like, 'Come here.' And he gives me a big hug and he's just like, 'I thought you were going to die.' They all had the same thing to say. They were just happy that I was alive and they were just like, 'This is your home. You grew up here. We want you to stay here.' Finally, in heartbreaking AEW news that you likely saw on Dynamite, Kris Statlander is injured and is going to be out of action for a while. PW Insider noted that Kris was seen on crutches backstage at the show, and she later announced that she would need knee surgery on Twitter. Now, obviously, it's never good when someone gets injured, but in this case, it is particularly bittersweet, as according to sources, there were plans within the company for Statlander to receive a major push. So here's wishing Kris a speedy recovery. And happy Friday to everyone watching. In this WrestleTalk news, an NXT star deletes their Twitter after a controversial tweet. Tony Khan addresses backstage unhappiness at AEW, and Pete's going to be here reviewing AEW Dynamite, so subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos.